So hello everyone, and thank you for joining. So I will be going over the AMCP Executive Fellowship today. So my name's Yulia. I am the current AMCP Executive Fellow at AMCP. And so we have a brief agenda for today. So we'll have a little welcome and introduction because I do have all the three past fellows here and also our CEO, Susan. So we'll start with Susan. She can introduce herself.
Thank you, Yulia, and welcome everyone. I'm Susan Cantrell, CEO of AMCP. Been with the organization since 2016, and I'm a pharmacist by training, but have spent the better part of my career in healthcare associations. Delighted to be with you this evening.
All right, and I will go to Drake next since he is our first fellow.
Hey everyone, apologies if I have a special guest tonight. We just got a new puppy and she's not used to me working past 5, so I'm trying to keep her off screen. But good evening, everybody. Really excited to be here. Drake Ryder. I'm a pharmacist by training. Currently work as Director of Pharmacy Operations for Priority Health, health plan based in Michigan. I've been with Priority for just over 2 years and have been here since completing the fellowship at AMCP. And like Yulia mentioned, I was the inaugural executive fellow in 2021, 2022, I think was the year. I have to, really pay attention now and I count backwards. But excited to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, Mason.
So we're just gonna go in order here, but so hello everyone. I'm Mason Johnson. I'm the manager of professional affairs here at AMCP. I decided to stay on board after my fellowship, but I was Drake Part 2 for the longest time and then became Mason on my own. No, I'm kidding. But I stayed here at AMCP and I also have a much larger puppy. I met Drake's puppy last weekend and she's but mine is at home right now, so you will not be seeing her during this session, but maybe in the future, so we'll see. But happy to be here.
And
Hey,
Sanchita.
everyone. Yes, hi. I'm Sanchita. I was the fellow last year, right before Yulia, and I am currently a clinical pharmacist specialist at RX Benefits, which is like a pharmacy benefits optimizer. I don't know what they call themselves. And I've been there since August, so pretty much like right after I finished the fellowship. But I went to University of Washington Pharmacy School, graduated last year, got my MBA when I was there too, and just super involved with AMCP as a student. So was very excited to do the fellowship last year, and it was an amazing experience. So I'm, excited for you guys to learn more about it.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. So before I go over all the logistics of the fellowship and all the fun things that you'll be doing at AMCP, I kind of wanted to give a little bit of background about AMCP's mission. I know you didn't come for a history lesson, but just like a small history lesson about managed care, and then we'll get right into the executive fellowship. So AMCP's mission is to improve patient health by ensuring access to high quality and cost-effective medications. And often as a fellow, you'll definitely refer back to this mission either when you're talking to different stakeholders or honestly, really just when you're doing different types of projects, you'll often refer back to this mission. And so, as some of you may know, if you are an AMCP member, we do have a large membership. So we have over 8,000 members and over 80 student chapters that really allows you to collaborate and network between members. And so I think AMCP does a really great job at bringing managed care professionals together. And now I feel even industry as well. So I think it's a great time to be at AMCP. So just a small definition of what managed care pharmacy is, because I think oftentimes I get this question a lot if somebody doesn't come from the managed care background and would want to know what you do as a managed care pharmacist. And so it's also defined on this slide, but as a pharmacist in managed care, you would use your scientific and clinical evidence knowledge to improve the quality and accessibility of healthcare while also trying to reduce costs. And I feel like that's a very lengthy sentence, but I think you learn what managed care is while you pick up those experiences at AMCP, and you kind of learn that managed care is more than just, a group of pharmacists, but it kind of brings together using pharmacists, nurses, patients, I think all healthcare resources collaboratively to come to one consensus. So I think it's a very interesting field. And so these are the types of managed care organizations. I really just put them here, I think for completeness sakes, because I think, some of you guys on the call may have maybe worked with some of these organizations or have heard of some of them. And so I think it's kind of nice to be able to put a picture to, like whether you've seen it on your insurance card of like what PPO means or what EPO means, just kind of being able to see what type of managed care organizations exist. And so the history lesson that I was talking about previously. So I think there's 2 years that I really want to highlight here, and 1968 is one of them because I often don't really think about managed care going as far back as the 60s, but it really does, and that's essentially when the first PBM was implemented. And then after that, in 1973, that's when President Nixon kind of signed off that Health Maintenance Organization Act. And now, most importantly, the most important year, obviously, is 1988, because that is when AMCP was founded, and the rest is history. But actually, that's when managed care really took off. And I think the field itself had matured very quickly after. So, managed care really developed over time. And that's, in the early 2000s is when we got CMS that tapped into AMCP leaders and we established those Medicare Part D systems and regulations. And so I think the main thing that I'm trying to get to is here is that pharmacists hold a lot of different roles within managed care. And I don't think that there is one job that a managed care pharmacist has to do. There's so many different areas that really all encompass one puzzle piece of managed care. And so I've put, they're all here for you. You can kind of see that, if you're interested in research, health economics, outcomes research is an area you could go to. Formulary management, which is more specific to managed care, drug information, quality, anything from like specialty pharmacy to government programs like Medicare and Medicaid. And so it's really nice to see that there are really a lot of opportunities, but all of these opportunities also go hand in hand. And I think you meet a lot of people that have gone from different types of areas of expertise to others. So it's really nice to be able to put all those to one picture and learn from them. So now to kind of give you the association leadership part of it is really that association leadership is actually very heavy in the Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia area because there's so many different other opportunities other than AMCP. So, we also have PQA, which is the Pharmacy Quality Alliance, also located in Alexandria, Virginia, APHA, which is Washington, D.C., ASHP, which is in Bethesda, and then ASCP, which is also in Alexandria, Virginia. So it's really nice because as the fellow, you can also learn a lot about all of these organizations and what they do in pharmacy, and you can also collaborate with the fellows. We also do like a monthly happy hour with the fellows that it's really nice to get together and, talk to each other and kind of talk about what we each do in association as a fellow. So it's a very fun time. Okay, so going on to the fellowship background, so these are really the 5 areas that I wanted to highlight as part of the fellowship. So the ASAE competencies, how you'll serve as a leadership team adjunct, how you'll serve as part of the executive office, and then really the diverse collaboration and the unique components that you'll get as part of the fellowship. So the ASAE competencies were created by the American Society of Association Executives, which is basically the association for associations. And these competencies will just kind of guide you on different projects that you'll complete throughout the year. So beginning of the fellowship, you will get a list of all the competencies and different projects within different areas of AMCP that you can complete. And some of the competencies are listed on here. So governance, business strategies, strategic partnerships. There's different ways that you can apply those competencies to the project that you'll complete at AMCP. So it'll kind of give you a structured way to complete projects. But this won't be the only way for you to be able to get experience. And so serving as a leadership team adjunct, I think, is probably one of my favorite parts, just because the leadership team consists of so many different types of leaders. And so there'll be different leaders either from the education team, from the government affairs team, the regulatory team, even the membership team. And so we all get together every single week and have a leadership team meeting. And so it's really nice to be able to collaborate and learn from them and also pick up on like different projects. Um, Sometimes that come from the end of those leadership team meetings. So it really kind of offers like a really diverse and inclusive way for the fellow to be part of different departments, and serve as a core function for you to come together every single week. So this kind of serves as a constant every week for me. So it's really nice to have that constant and be able to bring back experiences either from conferences that I've been to, or our recent partnership forum that we had. So it's really nice to have that collaboration and be able to give input or just hear input from the team. Okay, so there's me and there is Susan. So essentially, being part of the executive office, you will report directly to Susan, and you will have weekly meetings with her to kind of discuss different projects, ideas, really be able to pick her brain on anything that you'd like to learn, either about managed care, more about associations. And so I think it's a really great way for you to expand how you think, because I think when I originally came to AMCP, it was very much new information to me and I didn't really know how to take it all in. And so it's really great to kind of have that one-on-one time with her and be able to talk about new projects and new opportunities, and where I see myself after this. So it's a great way to kind of bring back your ideas and see, okay, like what's next for me? What other projects would I want to do? Is there anything that I feel like I haven't been able to do yet? So it is a really great way to really learn from the source. So one of the other really great aspects is probably being able to combine those executive duties with being able to do research. So if there's something within the area of pharmacy that you've done maybe in the past, or something that you've been interested in the research area, we do also have someone in the research department at BBCIC. So that's the Biologics Consortium. And Kate Lockhart is basically the heart of that, because she is someone that would be a great resource to you if you wanted to do research. She does a lot of many different types of research and also a lot of valuable work here at AMCP. So I think a big focus for us this year is real world evidence. And also, if that's something that interests you, you'll be able to have time and pick her brain as well if that's something you'd want to do as a possible elective project. So for me, I think part of the unique component of the fellowship is how I've kind of summed it up to be. It's really like a 50% managed care focus and a 50% association leadership focus. But I think at one point it all kind of merges together where you're doing projects that are involved within managed care, but also are serving the association. So I think it's really nice to kind of see all of those together. So obviously the managed care focus is more within the health plan side, the professional affairs side, and kind of working on what are some of the current managed care issues that we're currently having, and how can we solve those? How can we respond to our members who are pharmacists in managed care? And so the other half is the association leadership focus, which is more of that executive office experience that you'll accumulate usually by working with Susan or other leaders, part of the executive office team. So Yvonne, who is also part of our executive office, she is kind of like the mastermind behind all of these events. And sometimes I'll do projects with her, and it's really, really nice to be involved in, the behind the scenes planning of all the different events that take place at AMCP. So that's something that you'll definitely be able to work on and shadow. So I think you definitely have a lot of guidance, but you also have a lot of time to take leadership. So I think one part that I can really say you have full autonomy in is the Joint Research Committee. So you serve as the staff liaison for this committee. And so you kind of put together all of the meeting materials for them. You collect all the information that you really need to be able to meet as a committee. And so I think it's a really great way to kind of understand like what this committee does and what they do and how they serve the members of the committee. So it's a great way to also interact with other members of AMCP, but also other members within managed care and also industry. So to give you a small summary of the position, it is a one-year program, and this year is starting June 23rd, 2025. It is on site here in Alexandria at the AMCP headquarters, and you'll usually come in about 4 days a week, and then one day you can be hybrid. But honestly, I think the best days that I have are usually in the office. We get to see everyone. You get to collaborate with everyone. You get to have those in-person meetings that I think are just a little bit different than attending them online. So I think it's really great to have that opportunity. You'll have that travel aspect, that you'll be able to attend two really big meetings, being Nexus and Annual. And I can say being part of them as an AMCP fellow has been very, very different than being a student, and in a very good way, because I feel like the experience has just been very surreal for me. I think I've learned so much, and I've met so many new people and perspectives, and I think that's exactly what I wanted to get from it. So it was a really, really great time. But I think every fellow will have their own experiences because everyone will have different interests. So it that's I think what makes the fellowship so special too. And I just kind of wanted to give you guys a page to kind of have the resources and application information. So our applications have been open. They opened September 30th and they closed January 6th. I have my contact information on here, which is my email. And then if you scan the QR code, that'll take you directly to the Executive Fellowship webpage, and you'll be able to kind of see, what things you have to submit, the qualifications for the fellowship, and also the link to the AMCP Career Center, which is ADP, and that's where you'll complete your application. And then lastly, I really just had one final slide with my email. I also have my phone number here if you prefer to contact me via cell. So yeah, I kind of wanted to give the rest of the time for you guys to ask any questions, see if there's anything that you were wondering about, AMCP, the fellowship itself, any experiences, anything you'd want to ask the fellows too. I think the past fellows, they're a great resource to kind of hear where they're at and how they got there. So yeah, open forum for you guys to unmute yourselves. You can also turn on your cameras.
Hi, Yulia. Thank you so much for the information. It's so helpful and exciting. So I have a question regarding to the electives. Which elective is your favorite and why? And how do you tailor your elective experience toward your interest? Sorry, it's a long question, and any past fellow can answer too. I'm curious.
Yeah, sure. So I can definitely start. I think something early on that I was really interested in was health policy. And I think that's something that I think even first day when I had my first meeting with Susan, she was like, so like what would you want to do? What kind of experiences would you want to have? So I talked to her about health policy, and I think immediately I was involved in a project that included like the 2024 election, which was very interesting to me. So I think from there, I kind of continued that interest. And whenever there would be different opportunities for me to kind of gain insight about health policy or, issues that you don't necessarily see pharmacists in all the time, I was able to go. So I think my favorite thing is I recently went to the health policy conference in DC, and really, I was the only pharmacist there. So it was very interesting to see that perspective because everyone was like, oh, like you're in pharmacy? Like I'm, like what, how do pharmacists take part in health policy, or like what areas of health policy are you interested in? And so it was great to kind of have that connection and make that connection for them and see that light bulb go off, because I was like, well, I'm also in managed care, which is also related to other things like the health plan and the Affordable Care Act and the IRA. So I think that was very fun, and I connected with a lot of new people. I learned a lot of helpful information. I think just background on like Congress and what Congress does, because I never really had that background before. So I think for me that was definitely a highlight of an elective experience that I had. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do any of the other fellows want to go share an elective experience, perhaps?
start. Mine was more in the government affairs side. So we have a professional affairs team, and that's more like our practice-based issues at AMCP. We also have our government affairs team, and it's kind of in the name what they do. But I had a really fun time learning with them, just sort of the legislative side of things. Like Julia mentioned, there was a lot of health policy. There was also a lot of opportunities to, we have what our lobby days is what they're called. So to attend those lobby days and see like how to go on the Hill and like, champion a bill that we support. And then, kind of engage with just the members that attend those lobby days was really fun for me. So it was a different scope to take things. I never really had done things outside just your traditional like managed care pharmacy or just pharmacy settings. So learning things from like that health policy perspective was one of my favorite um, sort of electives or rotations throughout the year.
I think for me, like I really enjoyed being able to set up like a lot of different shadowing opportunities through the connections that I was able to make through the fellowship with our various AMCP members and some of our board members even. I think that was like a really great learning opportunity for me, and you really have that flexibility to kind of explore anything that you might be interested in.
Julia, you might want to mention that we have some fun too. Do you want to talk about the Friendsgiving event next week
Oh,
that
yeah,
you
sure.
planned?
Yeah, so the PQA fellow and I, so her name's Melanie, we actually planned a Friendsgiving, and that's like with the PH, like, like pharmacy, a play on Friendsgiving. But we actually planned a pharmacy museum tour here at the Apothecary Museum in Alexandria. And then we're also going to do a dinner at Mia's Italian Kitchen after with all of the association fellows in the area. So, we really look forward to it because I think it's a time for all of us to just be able to get together and talk. I feel like we often get really busy, but I think it's going to be really, really fun. We were able to get together a little bit in the beginning, and it was really great to get to know everyone and kind of hear, what does everyone want to do? How does everyone like the area? Because I know a lot of people have moved from different areas to the DMV area, so it's a great way to also like make friends. So I'm very excited. It's going to be great to see everyone and also see the museum. I've never been to the museum, and I've heard it's a really, really fun tour. So yeah, very exciting. We definitely have a lot of fun outside of the office. So we have, a really great staff in general. So if you feel like, you might be a little bit, more shy or intimidated, I think, AMCP is very welcoming, but I think so are all of the other associations, which is really nice. So you do have a great support system overall.
It's one thing I'd like to echo during my fellowship year was I didn't realize, I guess the networking that goes on with it as well, like on the fun side of things, not just business. So being connected in our group meet chats and having monthly happy hours and monthly get-togethers where the groups just come together from other associations and we just all talked and we all hung out. And there's still people from that cohort that, I still talk to on the daily and still hang out with daily. So you really build a strong sense of community while you're up here because DC can be overwhelming and the whole area can be very overwhelming and sort of lonely at first, but once you start getting into your fellowships and your programs, there really is a strong sense of community that I liked. And again, people that I still talk to today from that time, and we would just always stay connected that way. So there is a lot of fun on the other side of all the business and fun with the fellowship. There's also that community that you get to build with other residents and fellows in the area. So just want to echo that.
Yeah, same. It's a really great opportunity to like learn more about the other associations. I know that I think at least in my year, but I think it's happening this year too. Like all of the different fellows, like we organized days where we were able to like visit each other's offices. Just kind of had like days where we had a couple hours where we learned more about that association, what goes on there, met some of their staff, and we tried to do that like at each association in the area. So that was also a very cool part.
Yeah, I think we actually did it earlier in the fellow, like in the earlier in the year this year, where I almost got to go to almost all of the different associations in the area, as many as I could actually. But no, it's definitely a really fun time because you get to meet their past fellows as well because they usually attend. So you can kind of see where they ended up as well, whether they stayed in associations, or they went somewhere else in the pharmacy world. So that's yeah, it's very, very fun time. Any other questions or any thoughts that you guys have, or like anything that it seemed unclear or you're uncertain about, maybe for like the application process?
Yeah, I have more questions. So my first question would be what projects that you feel is the most rewarding that you have done? And then yeah, and I'll leave question later. Yep.
Yeah, sure. I think I have to think about that one because I think for me as of lately, I've done a lot of different projects. Um, I want to say more in the beginning of the fellowship. Um, I really kind of had the opportunity to do, again, like background research on what was really going on in the 2024 election. And I was actually asked for input for an upcoming survey to see like where the future of pharmacy would be going in the future of managed care pharmacy would be going in the next 5 years. And for me, I was like, okay, like I'll put these questions together and, you know, they might turn out to be good questions, they might not, and they actually were included in the survey. So that felt like a big accomplishment for me because I was like, I've only been here 2 weeks. So I wasn't sure if, you know, if that was enough or if I had known enough about the subject or the topic. But I've learned that I think just from that experience that as a fellow, just because you get to work in so many different departments, your input is really valued so much. Like you're really fresh out of school and you have so much knowledge, but you also are able to still learn so much and navigate. So I think that was something that was really rewarding in the beginning. And most recently, I was able to help the education department kind of review all of their education models for one of the trainings. And I actually worked with one of their voice actors, to tell him like what other edits were coming from the pharmacy side and if anything needed to be changed. So kind of seeing that I was able to take lead in a project on my own was really, really nice. The VP of the education department, Ruby, like she was like, this is your project, you let me know how much guidance you need, or you can completely leave me out of it and just, bring me at the end and, make sure we've wrapped up everything. So it was really nice for her to give me that autonomy in the project. So that was really rewarding as well, because I think in both of those projects, I learned very different things about myself. One, like, how much guidance do I feel like I need on certain projects? And two, kind of having a little bit more faith and trust in myself that like my knowledge is, useful and what I have learned in pharmacy school is applicable even in health policy if that is it is a route that I want to go into. So it was really, really great. Yeah.
I have some perspective I can share on this one too. So there were two projects that stick out to me during my fellowship that I still remember and still am very glad I got to be a part of. And I think both of them sort of speak to the role that AMCP plays in the, managed care world. And I love the position that AMCP is in, um, because there is so much collaborative activity, so many different stakeholder groups are members. You really get some just really fascinating insights into the managed care world. So the projects I was involved in, the first one, AMCP was starting to focus on digital therapeutics and what the role of managed care pharmacy was in managing those. And so during my fellowship, the organization was looking to launch what was called an advisory group, which is essentially a group of experts from around the country who, this was their area of expertise, and really trying to map out, some key deliverables around what was managed care's role, how could we help facilitate coverage and payment and access to patients for those. And really, there were very few organizations, if any, that were focusing on that. So I had a really unique opportunity to help co-lead that from a staff standpoint. So I got to help like draft the charter with the objectives. I got to help recruit some of the experts, which was a really great networking experience for me. I also learned just a lot about the managed care world and what opportunities existed just from that aspect of it. So that was one big project I think that stuck out to me. The other one was um, AMCP has these events known as partnership forums, which I think they typically happen 3 to 4 times a year. They're focused on really complex, big picture projects that are facing the industry. So I think today some of them are, how do you incorporate the patient perspective into day-to-day practice? How do you manage really high cost drug therapies that are, sometimes more than $1, $2 million per therapy? And so again, a topic that I knew very little about, but I got to work behind the scenes to help kind of draft a lot of the prep materials for the partnership forum. And then on the day of, it's a similar sort of setup where it's an in-person meeting. There's probably 20 to 30 experts from around the country who fly into DC to have a 1 to 2 day series of discussions. And I got to help facilitate one of the smaller breakout groups. And I just, again, learned so much, got to network through that, and all of those other things too. So those are probably two to me that really stick out and, are just things that I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do. I'll also make one small comment on the fun part. Actually, all 4 of us, current and former fellows, are doing a 5K this weekend, actually. So some of us will be running, some will be walking, but that's another sort of part of the community. It's been fun for me, especially as having been the first one, now having this grow to its 4th year. We have sort of our own community now, just in ourselves and the alumni. So there's that part of it too, in addition to everything that everybody else mentioned.
Thank you for not asking me to run with you. No, seriously, thank you.
You're welcome to join. There's still time.
No.
Yeah, you can still come.
It's for a good cause.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those seem so meaningful and valuable. And thank you for sharing again. I have a question regarding to the application process. So I'm wondering like what would be an ideal candidate? Like what kind of qualities that you're looking at, especially in this application process? Thank you.
I can jump in there on that one. So you can probably tell from hearing a few of the stories from from Yulia and our past fellows that we really need individuals that are highly motivated, self-starters, and can jump in there and do some very innovative things. And, often what we assign you, I would say almost 100% of the time, the projects that you get involved in are things that you might not have been exposed to before. Drake talked about digital therapeutics, and that's still a really emerging area. At the time that Drake was involved in doing the work that he was doing, it was like really early days for the digital therapeutics, so we didn't know much then. And I just gave Yulia another project that she's going to be working on, totally outside of her usual scope, probably, of things to be doing. So you really have to not be intimidated by that and just say, okay, let me jump in here and figure it out. Yulia referenced a moment ago getting a project from our education team and being told you can ask me as much or as little as you want. And that's kind of the way we like to operate. This is a learning experience for a year, and we'd like for you to leave like feeling fully prepared for whatever your next step is. And then that next step would likely be a challenging position. So we're going to do everything we can to help you learn and grow during that 1 year period of time. So we're looking for someone who's willing to take that on And I would say that's a really important thing. We ask you for a copy of your transcript, and it's not because we care so much about grades. That is not really a factor, but we just need to make sure that we're the candidates that rise to the top are actively engaged in their schoolwork and in good academic standing. But we're not looking for somebody to, have the highest GPA or anything like that. Engagement and involvement with associations is a bonus. But I know also sometimes we hear from student pharmacists that the curriculum and your rotations in the last year really use up all the bandwidth that you have. So that won't be a big differentiator, but we do like to see that we have someone who's at least been involved in some community level activities or in perhaps associations or exposed to associations during their time in pharmacy school. We do place quite a bit of emphasis on the letter of interest that we ask you for, the cover letter, if you will, that goes with your resume. And, that's kind of an old school thing when you're applying for a position to have to do a cover letter. But we really think it's important because it gives us insight into your interest and motivations for doing the program. And so I would say that's a really important thing. We also ask for a couple of letters of recommendation, and those are really important as well in really providing a testament to the strength and unique qualifications of the participants. One thing that we do that may be a little bit unique from some of the other programs is we ask you to record a video as the final step. So our top candidates that we're going to be bringing in for an interview, which would typically be 3 or 4 individuals max. We would ask them in advance of the interview to submit a video, very short, and we'll give you a couple of prompts to work with. But that also just gives us insight into your interests, your motivation, how well you present, how well you organize your thoughts, and your level of critical thinking and that sort of thing. And you don't have to run a 5K to be considered. Although that's a bonus.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, not yet. That's a real bonus.
Thank you for sharing. And I have another question. So I'm not sure if that's going to impact on the application, but like I'm wondering if international students are still able to apply for this fellowship, or is that like a restriction? Thank you.
Yulia, I can't remember the exact language about that we include on the application. You might remember maybe a graduate of a U.S. School of Pharmacy or equivalent, something like that. But also, the ability to work in the United States will be really important.
Yeah, I think for the majority of what we had was mainly like being graduate um, of a pharmacy school in the US. I think that's what we had in the main description. Don't think we had anything specifically about international students. I can definitely reach out and see like what that would mean in the case is, or
Are
is
you
she asked? I'm
are
not
you
sure.
enrolled in a school outside the U.S. right now? No?
No,
Okay.
I'm a student. I'm a pharmacy candidate at Purdue. So I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
sure.
going to graduate
Yeah.
from Purdue, but I'm
Mhm.
like international. So I don't know if that's going to impact anything.
Nope. So long as you're able to work in the U.S., that is not an issue for us at all.
Thank you so much.
You
Yeah.
bet.
I have another question. Sorry, I feel I'm asking so many questions. So I'm curious about how does day-to-day look like for you? I know like it's probably different, especially with different electives, but in general, how does it look like?
Yeah, so I think a best way to kind of describe you, maybe a general week versus day to day, because like I said, my two constants are usually either that leadership team meeting of the week, and then whenever I have a weekly meeting with Susan. Usually for me, the way I like to start my morning is I I make myself a little note of things that I have to do either day of or later in the week. Um, but I will say, bye, Susan. Thank you. I will say like my day to day is pretty variable, but it's usually I will start by checking emails because that's how I'll know if something's urgent and requires my attention of like, oh, I need to like jump onto like a specific meeting or usually if you need to jump onto any meeting with anyone as part of the AMCP team, somebody will give you a heads up like, hey, are you available at this time to meet with me? But I will say in the very beginning, you'll be able to kind of have one-on-one time with me because I tried, at least for this year, to have a little bit of overlap with the fellow. So I was really grateful to have Sanchita for about a week and a half that I was like transitioning. And it was really nice because whenever I had a question, she was right there. And I didn't have to necessarily be like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, so it was really great to have her support and to know, like, outlined, like, what should my day look like. You'll most likely be meeting most of the leadership team at first to kind of understand all the different departments at AMCP. But after that, I think you'll get into a groove of your own. Like, again, like my day to day is usually like, I will usually look at emails first and I'll have a couple of morning meetings and then I'll kind of make sure that I block out time in my calendar to work on projects, prepare for any meetings, prepare for any major meetings. So coming closer to October is when you prepare for Nexus. So as a fellow, you take part of AMCP staff in Nexus and you're kind of running Nexus. And so, you'll have to do different preparations for that. But you can definitely chunk out time that, I want to make sure I get an hour of working on this project. So you definitely have full autonomy of your schedule, I will say, for most of the time. And you can kind of just hone in on things that you want to work on beginning to the end of the week. But I will say there won't be anything that really requires a very harsh deadline. I think you might be your worst critic in figuring out what deadlines you really need to meet, but a lot of that is usually also discussed with Susan. So if there's any project that she gives you, she will definitely give you a deadline to meet. So, it kind of depends, but I will say that's maybe the best answer I can give you. I don't know if the other fellows can zone in. Maybe I'm just still all over the place still, but you guys can tell me if you had like a better schedule than I did. I guess at least for like, weekly or daily.
I think that pretty much sums it up because, like you said, things can be different like every day. You may not always have meetings every day, and then, you'll just have more time to like work on your projects. It's very like independent, so it's really up to you to kind of like plan out your day and your week. And yeah, there aren't, like you'll usually have like leadership team one-on-ones with Susan. If you're doing the joint research committee stuff, like usually there's like something to do every week, like for that. There's monthly meetings for that committee, and you have to like prepare, for that, and meet with like the chairs for that committee regularly. But yeah, it's really varies depending on just what project you're working on.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I have another question. Are you guys all from Alexandria, or do you guys move to there? How does the experience look like?
So I'm from Tennessee originally, and I moved to DC for the fellowship, and it was a a big culture shock at first because I was from a smaller town, so it was a little turning up the volume a little bit. But once I made it to the area, like I mentioned, a sense of community, connecting with others, it was really nice. But yeah, I am originally from Tennessee, and I've been here since then. So I never really went back home. I guess that was a good sign or a good testament of how things turned out. But I made that journey. And Sanchita from Seattle, Drake is from Iowa. Yulia, I think you're the one local person, are you, Yulia? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm from Maryland, so I did not move very far, but honestly, it's a really great area to be in. Like, I think there's so much to do here, like between the Northern Virginia area and DC, there is so much to do. And in the office, so right underneath us is a Trader Joe's. So honestly, that's always a really great activity, in my opinion. I just went and raided Trader Joe's today, actually. So um yeah, there's definitely a lot to do, and there's a lot to do like where the AMCP headquarters is in Old Town, Virginia. So, there's so many little shops, bakeries, coffee places, food places. It's right by the water. So it is a very, very nice area to be in, I think, in general.
That sounds cute. So I'm curious, what did you do in Friday afternoon?
Um, I think it depends on the week. Friday afternoons.
Those are
I don't
usually
know.
those work light days, like those lightly work.
Yeah.
Fridays are like the work from home days where you kind of wrap up your week.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I navigated my year was my Friday was just sort of work from home to gather my thoughts and then sort of see where I've been and then maybe where I'm going the next week. So as for anything social, there's tons of things to do. I don't know. Like that's that's kind of like opening Pandora's box. There's so many things to do in the
Yeah.
area. But work-wise, that's how I'd shaped it. So
Yeah, Fridays. I think Fridays people try to keep it light, not a lot of meetings. People try to keep it
Yeah.
like, meetings up until maybe 3 p.m. If anything, your latest meeting will be like 3:30. But I think most people try to um, go along those same lines. But I think for me, like Friday is definitely a day I'm looking forward to because that's my work from home day, and I, get some time to like unwind and like actually like have breakfast. Um, so it's but you can come into the office on Fridays if you'd want to, but usually I think that's most people's work from day, so usually there isn't a lot of activity in the office. Yeah.
I'll say too, I think I still do this, even though I'm not a fellow, but I always tell people who are thinking about doing the fellowship that I always very much view the fellowship as a career development, one giant career development opportunity for you. So, I never felt bad about meeting up with people for coffee or things like that because I think that's part of the experience. But even to this day, a lot of times for me, when things are a little bit less hectic on Friday afternoons, I like to use that as career development time. So, things that are maybe tangentially related to work that you want to do sometimes for more of a personal reason. Sometimes it's still work related, but it has a kind of dual benefit. I'll still use Friday afternoons as a good time to do a lot of that sort of stuff, especially when I've got all my things done for the week and it's my final few hours. So that's kind of how I had spent some of my Friday afternoons as well during the fellowship.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that because I think uh going to different events, obviously going with Susan or going as part of the AMCP team or during Nexus, you'll meet a lot of people in different areas of managed care and like ones that you're like, ooh, I really like what this person does and I'm more interested in, as a way for you to like keep in touch with them if you feel like on a Friday you both can meet or they're in the area. I think it's a great use of your time if you do have some time where like you have caught up on certain projects and you can meet up with them and talk to them like one-on-one career wise. So I will say that's probably like something really great that you could do. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Any other questions? I know somebody had to jump off, but if there's anything from anybody else that we haven't been able to answer or you were wondering. Okay. I mean, if not, I will definitely let you guys go. You guys can definitely reach out to me if you have any other questions or, if you have any questions when you're completing your application, definitely reach out if you're a little bit unsure. If you don't want to email me, my cell phone's there. I'm active on LinkedIn most of the time, so feel free to reach out if you need anything. And thank you guys for coming. Hope you guys have a great rest of your evening and a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
everyone.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.